Welcome to Downshift. My name is Matt, and this is the new Chevrolet Colorado in the full Max Attack Off-Road ZR2 trim. We've spent a week with this truck, so today we're going to hit the highlights, the best and the rest, starting with the rest. And of course, the first thing we talk about is usually the last thing we talk about here, and that's price. Now, the Colorado ZR2 starts at about $48,000, which is already a lot, but you can get pretty much everything that you want, at least in terms of options, and you get that from the jump, which is why this loaded as tested price of this truck here is about $52,600. And yes, that's a lot of money, but that's comparing it against the rest of the field, which are legacy products over like a decade old. I think when we start to see the new Ranger, like the Raptor, and the new Tacoma TRD Pro get priced out, they will be very similar to what we have here, if not a bit more. And this next thing is everyone's favorite thing to talk about. I even watched on the initial media launch in San Diego, a mildly intoxicated journalist making it very clear to the Chevy PR team what he thought of this feature. And if you've watched my other videos, you'll know that I'm talking about the headlight controls. Yeah, it's true, the headlights are controlled through the screen, and the controls are about 2 taps away. But here's why that isn't as big a deal as it might seem. As standard, you get automatic headlights and automatic high beams, and they work really well, so you'll rarely need to access the controls anyway. If I'm honest, I would still prefer a physical control for the headlights, but it's that thing where they try to clean up the cabin too much and they put simple things into a more complex place. The other example is how I had a 5-minute scavenger hunt with the delivery driver on where the trip reset button was. Surprise, surprise, it's in the screen. Do I love that? No. But am I enraged? Absolutely not. It's one of those things where you'll get used to it fairly quickly, and again, they've minimized the need to access these things, so if you own the truck, it's not going to be a big deal for you long term. And number 3 is fuel economy, which is something I was a little surprised to see. The only engine option for the Colorado now is this 2.7 liter turbocharged 4-cylinder, which is a great engine, by the way. We'll talk about it more later. But of course, they went this way for emissions and fuel economy, right? Then you'll understand why I'm a little surprised to see that the window sticker has 16 mpg as the combined rating on it. I mean, my ancient 4Runner had a 4-liter naturally aspirated V6, which was notoriously thirsty, and if that was getting 17 mpg on the highway with BFG KO2s on it, what gives here? This is where like the hybrid setup like we're seeing in the Tacoma TRD Pro would have removed any argument against this truck. But in fairness, then we're talking about reliability, durability, and also I've been doing better than 16 mpg this week, so I guess my point is here, it's not terrible, but I was expecting the sticker on the fuel economy average to start with a 2. And then there's the rear seats, which it's kind of hard to put on the con side because it's the segment, but they have to go somewhere in the video, and they're just a little small. Aside from the size though, the rear seat is actually pretty good. The seat backs don't open up like you get in the Silverado or the fancy and tarted up Sierra, but they do fold up for more storage. You get nice vents back here, chargers, an outlet, and a manual rear window. And for $1,000 you can get this sunroof. Again, it's not bad in here, and going back to my GMC Canyon video, the sister vehicle to this, the rear seats were actually on the good side, so it really is kind of just on the cusp of whether or not it's going to be big enough or maybe a little bit too small for you. But with that said, there's a lot of great things going on with this truck, so let's talk about those. The first thing is the off-road hardware. Now this, of course, is the point of this truck. The ZR2 is built to be max attack off-road, and to be able to do that, you need a lot of hardware. Me and Drake Moscow went to North Carolina to drive the mechanical twin to this truck, the Canyon AT4X. And on an aggressive 3-hour trail as a shakedown, it was wildly capable from high speeds to low speeds. And this Colorado is exactly the same. And thanks again to Road America for letting us use their off-road course, but the reason that I bring up the GMC is just because that trail was a little bit more demanding than the course here. But back to the ZR2 here. First and foremost, you start with where the rubber meets the road, or the trail in this instance. And with a 3-inch lift and revised front bumper, they were able to fit 33-inch Goodyear mud terrain tires here versus the 31 inches from last gen. This in itself is a big upgrade. Like I mentioned, this is the part of the high and wide treatment from Chevy, which does a number of things. But what it results in is almost a 40-degree approach angle, just over 25-degree departure angle, and almost 25-degree breakover angle, all with just a hair under 11 inches of clearance. From there, of course, you have the Multimatic shocks, which are the same shocks that military vehicles are rolling around on. So if it's good enough for them, it's good enough for me. Plus, they are honestly great at heat dissipation, travel and articulation, and ride composition. And then there's the differentials, and you can lock just the rear, like everyone else, or you can lock the front and the rear. which is something you don't even get on TRD Pros or even Raptor trucks. And of course from there you've got your more normal things like a low range transfer case, skid plates, and a nice touch you don't get in the Trail Boss, rock rails. But based on my experience with this Colorado ZR2 around Road America's course, and my experience with Drake in North Carolina with the sister truck to this, the Canyon AT4X, I'm very impressed with the off-road capabilities of this platform. But here's the thing, it's 2023, and the other side of the hardware coin is the software coin. And there is a myriad of software and things that you can control in the cabin here to make even daunting maneuvers seem easy or tedious. One of the biggest pieces of that is the plethora of off-road cameras that you get. I forget the number, but you have every view you could want, from spotting trail tolerances on either side of your wheel to trailering assistance. And then there are the drive modes. You have normal and tow haul, but then you have 3 dedicated off-road modes. Not even a sport or an eco mode, but then 3 off-road modes. Can you tell what this truck is focused on? First is the mode just called off-road, which is sort of a catch-all, 4-high, trail cameras on, etc. Then there's Baja mode, which is also 4x4, but with ESC off and traction off to keep the wheels spinning. And then there's terrain mode, which is what I remember spending a bunch of time in with Drake in North Carolina. And it throws you into 4-low, turns on trail control, puts your front camera and underbody camera on, and it's brilliantly done. Rock crawling isn't usually my thing, but this was pretty awesome. And then from there are a couple other screens, one being your air down mode, which is great for something like this. You set a tire pressure for the truck and it'll take itself down to that pressure and then honk to let you know when it's done. Of course, it won't fill itself back up again, but it's still pretty cool. And then there's your off-road screens, and they sound just like your drive modes. You've got Baja, terrain, but then instead of off-road, they call it overland. So a little bit of unique information on each screen pertaining to whatever activity you're doing. The whole off-road suite here from GM is pretty impressive. And for the last bit, we're gonna try out Baja mode. And if you watched our Bronco Raptor review, you'll know that Paulo and I came up with the game. I actually miss him. He's usually sitting right here as we're doing this, and he's actually on his honeymoon, so huge congrats to him. Super excited for him and his wife. But we will miss him as co-pilot today, so we'll have to time using the actual footage in editing. But we're gonna do our lap of the Road America off-road course in Baja mode and just see what kind of time we get and how the truck responds. Flip it into Baja, which is going to reduce stability control. We've got 4x4 in auto traction. Okay, so traction stability reduced. I'm gonna change this screen to a more off-road oriented one. Then we're gonna put some cameras on. So we've got our front-facing camera and our 360. And we're gonna get moving. 3, 2, 1, go. Again, it's the DSSV shocks that are really gonna put it over the top here. So we head into corner 1, and we're gonna approach the first hill. Brake for approach. We got big ass rocks right here, so careful with the tires. We did not air down. This is fantastic to have the front facing camera. And then full send into the next section. Braking. Oh, this is cool. A little bit of turbo lag there. Pretty to be expected. Through the mud pit. Oh, a little bit of brakes to get the back end around. Fall into the rut. Okay, brakes for the ruts. Again, we've not aired down. And then up the hill. And down the, oh, my stomach did that thing, you know, where it jumps up when you're driving as a kid and your dad hits it over a hill. And back through the last corner and across the line. Woo-hoo-hoo-hoo! This thing is fun. But then when you head back onto the pavement, it's pretty good here too. The ride is pretty good from these DSSV Multimatic shocks. They've got good travel. They soak up bumps pretty well. It's still leaf springs in the back, so you do get the truck body on frame jitter. But this is kind of more of a single thunk and then you're done with it rather than just constantly bouncing around. Your visibility is really good. Wind noise does start to pick up around 40 miles an hour because this thing is lifted 3 inches. You got the tires and you do get some roar, but it's really not too bad. The steering is numb, but it is accurate, especially for these tires. And the brakes have great bite. I've got no problem with it. It's nice, progressive, and responsive. And then the seating position is really natural. I've got the seat about as low as it can possibly go. I'm about 6'1", and this is pretty much exactly where I'd want to be. But if I was any taller, I might run into a little bit of an issue. So I guess until I drive the new Tacoma, this is what I'm going to take home. Now, this historically has not been a place that Chevys have shined in the past, but they are absolutely making up for that now. The interior here is actually and genuinely pretty nice, and there's a lot of attention to detail. For example, all your rubberized crevices are etched in a camo pattern, from your cup holders to your air vent surrounds and your dashboard. I mean, it's just cool. And then all the ZR2s get yellow interior stitching, which pairs perfectly with our nitro yellow truck here. And then you have a little ZR2 badge on the dash. But here's the thing, it's not just looks. There are some proper luxe touches in here. The seats are comfy, except for the headrests, which are positioned too far forward, but they're heated and they're cooled, and the seat coolers will come on automatically as the truck cools itself down when you get in. Same thing with the heating in the winter. I mean, that is a luxe touch you don't even get from some of the Germans. And of course, your steering wheel is heated too. And the exterior design of this truck isn't too bad either. I do apologize for the background noise. We are here at Road America, and they are running cars on track, but to be honest, I don't apologize that much because it sounds pretty awesome. I am obsessed with the nitro yellow metallic paint here though, and that's exactly how I'd order mine, no matter what my wife says. And then immediately you can tell this truck is not your normal Colorado. Each trim gets a unique grille, and the ZR2 gets a little badge, but you also get a red flow tie to feed more air into the engine. Fun fact, there's not a single gold bow tie on this truck, but there is one on the key. But anyway, looking at it, it's easy to see where they came up with the phrase high and wide. ZR2 gets huge fender flares and 3 inches of lift. You get big 33-inch tires and 17-inch wheels, which are awesome. You get rock rails on the side and a big ZR2 bed sticker. And then on the rear, it's stamped in with Chevrolet, which I kind of like. It certainly looks badass, and for more detail on some of the exterior styling bits, check out our feature tour. Listen to that. And I know today we've talked a lot about the off-road capability of this truck, and that's largely the point of the trim, but at the end of the day, it is still a truck, so can it do truck stuff? Well, the ZR2 does get downgraded for towing to 6,000 pounds, which is still pretty decent, but the max towing for other Colorado specs is 7,700 pounds, of course, depending on spec. And then there's the 5-foot bed with just under 1,300 pounds of payload. But you've got the ZR2 detail stamping in the back, you've got an outlet, and you've got the cool tailgate cooler thing. So for me, it would definitely tow my boat and then some. So yeah, it still works as a truck for me. And then we're back in the cab to talk about some more 2023 type things. That's the technology. And you've got a lot of it here. And some of the best stuff is standard, like the 11-inch instrument cluster, which has like 5 to 7 different pages of customizability and looks fantastic. And the 11-inch center screen, which looks great and works great as well. You've got Google built in here, so you get native maps, assistant, and even podcasts that aren't limited to news like they are on the Sierra from last week, so my wife can listen to her murders. You've got wireless Apple CarPlay and Android Auto here, which is great. And then you've got loads of info on vehicle status and trailering and everything else you can think of, including that slew of camera views. And a weird quirk of the 360 camera that I like is they've programmed it to be like a white or silver truck, but it's like it's being sun-kissed with a yellow or orange or golden glow from the sun. But it stays on the same side of the truck no matter where you're parked. So it's not actually relative to the sun, but just kind of fun. And last but not least, I want to talk about the engine for a second. This is an engine we've seen before, and we're only going to start to see more of it. It's already in a bunch of stuff like the Big Brother Silverado and also the Cadillac CT4V, not the Blackwing, but the V. It's GM's 2.7 liter turbocharged 4-cylinder. And here in the Colorado, it's got 3 outputs. The ZR2 does get the high output as standard, which means 27 PSI of boost, 310 horsepower, 430 pound-feet of torque. This thing has plenty of power. And the cool thing is, if you don't go with the ZR2 and you just get the middle output, the only difference between the middle output and the high output is a software tune. So you can go to the dealer and just say, hey, I want more power. They don't have to change any of the hardware or internals on the engine, and then you have ZR2 power, which is pretty awesome. The only thing to be aware of is that in the high output power here, your fuel economy rating is 16 mpg from the EPA, which is less than I was expecting to see. Now, I've been doing better than that, but just something to be aware of if you are fuel conscious. But ultimately, it's a great engine. When I was at the launch of the Colorado in February of this year, I got to hear directly from the engineers and some of the more technical stuff that they went over. But the main story is this: they very much stand behind this engine. It sounds like it's going to be incredibly durable and reliable and have loads of longevity. You get V6 or even V8 power in some instances for performance, and then you've got diesel torque numbers for towing. So, I mean, what more could you want? So that's the best and the rest of the new Chevrolet Colorado in ZR2. As you can tell through the course of this video, I really like this truck. And granted, I haven't driven the brand new generation 3rd gen Tacoma, which is the segment leader for this, but until I do, I'm going home in a Colorado ZR2, and I'm going home in nitro yellow metallic, no matter what my wife says. We'll see you in the next one.